Hey guys, tonight we dive into the quiet chaos of something you probably brushed off as just a few too many cups of coffee. But now, you're here 3:14 a.m., eyes dry but wide open, heart tapping a rhythm that doesn't quite match your breath. Your room feels like a movie set that forgot to turn off the lights. Even with the blankets pulled up, your body won't settle. You're not sleepy, you're wired. And somewhere deep down you suspect it's the coffee. Maybe it started with a late lunch. Maybe someone brought in a beautiful caramel macchiato with extra foam, and you told yourself, "It's fine, I'll drink water after." Then came the meeting, the errand, the second cup. By the time dinner rolled around, your hands were steady, but your thoughts were fluttering like loose pages in wind. You tell yourself you've handled more caffeine than this before, but something tonight feels different. And that difference? It's exactly what we're exploring. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? And what time is it right now? Let's see who's joining from the latest hour. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shift in bed. Your limbs feel both heavy and restless. There's a buzzing under your skin, like your nerves are whispering secrets to each other. You try to focus on your breathing's low inhale, slow exhale, but your brain keeps jumping tracks. Grocery lists, that awkward thing you said last week, a song chorus looping on repeat. You start to wonder if your mind even wants to sleep. Here's the secret most people miss. Caffeine doesn't give you energy, it blocks your body's natural signal to slow down. It targets a chemical called adenosine, which builds up throughout the day and tells your brain it's time to rest. Caffeine wedges itself into those adenosine receptors like a fake key. The fatigue signal, jammed. Your body's running low, but the dashboard light never turns on. Meanwhile, adenosine keeps building, and once the caffeine finally wears off, the floodgates open. That's why the crash feels so brutal. But if you've already reached for cup number 2 or 3 before that crash hits, you're just pressing mute again on a system that's screaming for pause. But here's where things get weird in a way most people never consider. A team of researchers in the Netherlands recently studied how differently people respond to caffeine. They expected genetics to be the main factor. What they found instead? The gut microbiome. Yes, those tiny bacteria in your intestines might be the secret reason you're more sensitive to caffeine than your friends. Their research showed that people with a certain gut flora profile metabolize caffeine faster and more efficiently, but those with imbalanced or less diverse gut bacteria, they process it slower, meaning caffeine lingers in their system like an overstaying guest. Worse, they also reported more nighttime anxiety, delayed sleep onset, and fragmented REM cycles. Let's say that again. Bacteria in your gut could be influencing how caffeine impacts your brain at night. And it doesn't stop there. These microbes are part of a powerful system called the gut-brain axis, a direct communication line between your digestive system and your central nervous system. Through this axis, bacteria can trigger the release of neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA, both crucial for calmness and sleep. But caffeine, in excess, disrupts this delicate conversation. Think of your gut like a garden, and caffeine like a burst of intense sunlight. A little might help the plants grow. Too much, the whole system dries up. What's even more unsettling is that researchers are still debating the long-term effects. Some believe chronic caffeine use might permanently shift your gut microbiome in ways that increase stress reactivity and reduce sleep quality even after you cut back. Others argue that the system is resilient, and with time and diet, it can reset. But tonight, in this quiet struggle against rest, none of that really matters. You just want to know how to stop the buzzing in your chest, how to shut off the electric current humming in your skull. You try to remember when you started drinking coffee regularly. College? Your first job? Maybe earlier. And back then, it felt like a superpower: clarity, focus, energy. But now? It feels more like a trick, like the caffeine is playing both sides. Here's something no one warns you about. Caffeine's half-life in healthy adults is about 5-6 hours. But if you're on birth control, have liver enzyme variations, or a gut imbalance, that half-life can double. That means a single latte at 2 p.m. might still be affecting your brainwaves at 2 a.m. And here's the part they never print on the cup. Sleep isn't just rest. It's memory consolidation, immune repair, emotional regulation. When you lose it even for one night, your body enters recovery mode. When you lose it regularly, your body begins to forget what balance feels like. There's a soft rattle as you shift positions again. The fan hums. Outside, someone's dog barks once and goes quiet. You feel the pressure behind your eyes and realize, with a sinking certainty, you're tired, but not sleepy. There's a difference, and that difference is where caffeine hides. Some scientists say our relationship with caffeine is cultural, habitual, even ritualistic. But few acknowledge the biological divide that some of us are wired to handle it better, and some of us are wired to lose sleep. And tonight, you've stumbled into the losing side. You turn onto your side, tug the blanket tighter, then kick it off again. Nothing feels right. There's a warm pressure behind your forehead, like your brain is glowing faintly awake when it shouldn't be. And as minutes stretch like hours, a question starts to form. Is it possible your body no longer knows when it's supposed to sleep? This isn't just about staying up too late. It's about something deeper, a shift inside your body's master clock. Scientists call it the circadian rhythm. You might think of it as a sleep timer, but it's more like a conductor of a 24-hour orchestra. It controls not just sleep and wakefulness, but hormone release, digestion, even your mood. And caffeine? Caffeine plays the role of a mischievous trumpet player off-beat, off-cue, but loud enough to throw everything out of sync. You reach for your phone to check the time. Bad idea. The blue light blasts your eyes, and your brain, already confused, gets another false signal. Morning's here. That's how the rhythm slips. In European sleep labs, researchers have started exploring how even low doses of caffeine can delay melatonin release, the hormone that whispers to your brain, "It's time." One study from Switzerland showed that a 200 milligrams caffeine dose taken in the early evening, roughly one strong cup, pushed participants' melatonin production back by over 40 minutes. That's almost an hour of natural sleep delay from just one cup. And here's the kicker. The participants still felt tired, but their brains stayed alert. It's like being stuck between two weather systems, cloudy skies, and harsh sun fighting overhead. Here's something weirder. In some people, caffeine doesn't just delay the sleep signal, it shifts the whole rhythm. That means your internal day-night cycle gets nudged forward, like you're flying 1 or 2 time zones east every night, without ever leaving your bed. Researchers in Italy have even proposed a new term for this: caffeine-induced phase delay. It sounds technical, but its effects are personal. You feel sleepy later, you wake up later, and eventually, you start living in a rhythm that's out of sync with the world. Work, school, even meals feel like they're happening too early. You're not lazy, you're just jet-lagged by your own habits. And not all bodies respond the same way. Your sensitivity depends on age, gender, even what time of day you drink coffee. Some Scandinavian labs are now testing wearable devices that monitor sleep patterns and caffeine levels in real time, because for many people, even moderate caffeine use creates a noticeable circadian shift. Let's pause here, because maybe no one's told you this yet. Caffeine stays in your system longer than you think. It messes with your timing system in ways you can't feel immediately. And over time, that disruption can become your new normal. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine your internal clock as an antique wall clock pendulum swinging, gears turning, precise and rhythmic. Then imagine someone giving it a gentle push. Not enough to stop it, just enough to knock it off beat. That's caffeine, especially when consumed late in the day, especially when consumed regularly. Your sleep doesn't break all at once. It slides. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Sleep debt builds up like interest. You may think, I'll catch up this weekend. But studies show your body never fully recovers from chronic disruption. You can make up for some lost sleep, yes, but the rhythm? The rhythm takes longer to reset. In one French experiment, subjects who consumed caffeine for just 2 weeks at inconsistent times had their core body temperature shifts delayed by nearly 2 hours, one of the key markers of circadian misalignment. 2 weeks. That's all it took. Still think your afternoon cappuccino is harmless? Let's not forget the argument that keeps surfacing among researchers. Does caffeine tolerance protect against circadian disruption? Some say yes, that habitual drinkers adapt, and their melatonin cycles remain stable. Others argue the opposite, that adaptation is only behavioral, and the underlying rhythm continues to suffer quietly, masked by routine. The debate is far from settled. But your body doesn't wait for peer-reviewed consensus. You get up, walk to the bathroom, splash cold water on your face. The mirror stares back, pupils slightly dilated, skin a little pale, eyelids heavy but not closing. You're not wired in the usual sense. You're stranded between tired and awake, a place with no name. And here's a detail few know. Some sleep researchers believe there's a difference between sleepiness and sleep pressure. Caffeine affects both, but in unequal ways. It can reduce your sense of sleepiness, that drowsy, cozy mental fog, but not always your sleep pressure, the physical need for rest. That's why you feel exhausted but alert. A contradiction that no amount of tossing and turning will fix. Meanwhile, back in Germany, researchers are exploring how caffeine's interference with body temperature. Yes, temperature may be another way it shifts your internal clock. Even a 0.3 degrees Celsius delay in your body's nightly cooldown can be enough to prevent deep sleep from kicking in. And guess what delays that drop? Caffeine. You sigh. Lie back down. One arm flung over your eyes. You start to think maybe this isn't insomnia. Maybe it's just caffeine living rent-free in your bloodstream, throwing parties in your neurons, moving furniture in your brain. And the worst part? It's not the coffee itself, it's the timing. The quiet in your room feels heavier, now thick, like the air is resisting your every breath. You lie there, eyes closed, pretending that pretending is enough, but it isn't. Your mind is still flickering, as if someone left the lights on inside your skull, and somewhere, beneath the hum of the fan and the rustle of your sheets, something is churning. Not in your head this time, it's lower, your stomach. Not pain exactly, just movement, a subtle unrest. And that's where tonight's trail leads next. You've heard people say, trust your gut, but you probably didn't think they meant it literally, especially when it comes to sleep. Yet a growing body of research out of the Netherlands, Denmark, and Austria is now pointing toward one of the most unexpected culprits in caffeine-induced insomnia, your gut microbiome. Inside your digestive system, there are trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, viruses all living in a delicately balanced ecosystem. Together, they regulate digestion, immune responses, and even influence your mood. But more recently, scientists have begun mapping an even stranger connection, how these microbes might be influencing your sensitivity to caffeine and your ability to sleep afterward. Here's what the Dutch researchers found. People who regularly experience insomnia after caffeine consumption tend to have less microbial diversity in their gut. In particular, they're often lacking a few key strains like Bifidobacterium longum and Lactobacillus reuteri, which appear to play a quiet but powerful role in metabolizing caffeine and regulating sleep hormones. It's not just about digestion anymore. These microbes actually interact with your central nervous system through what's called the gut-brain axis, a two-way channel of biochemical messages between your intestines and your brain. Think of it as a hidden subway line, running beneath everything you feel, think, and just show you sleep. And caffeine? It's a rogue passenger. When caffeine enters your body, it doesn't just wake up your brain, it also alters your gut motility, increases stomach acid, and, according to some animal studies, can disrupt the stability of microbial colonies. It's like shaking a snow globe of bacteria. Everything shifts. And when those microbes are out of balance, your sleep may suffer. Some European studies have taken this further, suggesting that caffeine's interference in the gut doesn't just cause short-term restlessness, it may actually change how your body handles stress. That means even on days when you haven't had caffeine, you might still feel wired, jumpy, or fatigued because your microbial balance has shifted away from calm and toward chaos. Still, the science is far from settled. Some researchers believe caffeine only affects the gut when consumed in large quantity, over 500 milligrams per day. Others argue that even moderate intake, 200-300 milligrams, can alter microbial gene expression, especially in sensitive individuals. One fascinating French study found that caffeine reduced the production of butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid known to support sleep and mood regulation. You're not sure how to feel about that. You sip coffee, not bacteria, but the idea that your gut is participating in your insomnia, that it's a character in this sleepless drama, is hard to ignore now. You shift again, feeling the faint, empty flutter in your stomach. Is it hunger, nerves, or just a microbiome trying to find its rhythm? Here's a strange detail. Some people who quit caffeine abruptly report vivid, bizarre dreams for several nights in a row. Not nightmares exactly, but intense, cinematic dreams. Researchers believe this might be the brain's way of rebalancing REM sleep after prolonged suppression. But others think it's the gut microbiome resetting and, in the process, flooding the brain with new signals, new chemicals, new sleep patterns. You wonder, is your gut dreaming too? There's another theory on the table: gut permeability. Some scientists argue that caffeine, especially in large doses, can increase the permeability of the gut lining, what some call leaky gut. When that barrier weakens, inflammatory molecules can enter the bloodstream more easily, possibly triggering systemic stress responses. And as we know, stress and sleep are old enemies. So you see the spiral. Caffeine upsets your gut upsets your brain upsets your sleep, and poor sleep makes your gut even more fragile the next day. It's a loop of feedback cycle that can be hard to notice until you're deep inside it, staring at the ceiling at 4 a.m., wondering why sleep has become something your body seems to resist. There's no lab test to diagnose this, not yet. But some sleep clinics across Scandinavia have started integrating microbiome analysis into their insomnia treatment protocols, testing patients' gut flora to tailor caffeine recommendations more precisely. A few even prescribe probiotic therapy alongside sleep hygiene routines. But even here, researchers are split. Is the gut a cause of insomnia, or just a casualty? Some argue that poor sleep weakens the gut, not the other way around. Others insist that microbial imbalances start the whole cascade. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. For now, you're left with questions and sensations both stirring quietly in the dark. The clock changes again. Maybe 10 minutes have passed. Maybe 20. It's hard to tell anymore. You place a hand on your stomach, half expecting it to answer. It doesn't, but somehow, the weight of it, your own hand, your own breath, feels grounding. Funny how the smallest things start to matter when sleep slips away. The night stretches on like an endless hallway. You stop checking the clock because every time you do, it feels like time is laughing at you. You can sense the shape of morning forming somewhere behind the darkness, still distant, but approaching too fast. And still, you're not asleep. It's hard not to feel a little betrayed. You did everything right today. Or mostly right. So why are you still awake? You try to reassure yourself, I'm not addicted to caffeine, I just like it. But tonight, that line feels thin, more like an excuse than a reason. Because let's be honest, if you had to go a full day without it, would you be fine? Would your body still feel like your own? Here's the thing. Caffeine addiction isn't about craving, it's about dependence. Most people think of addiction as something dramatic, shaky hands, desperate behavior, a loss of control. But caffeine dependence is much quieter, more polite. It hides behind morning rituals, behind mugs that say, "But first, coffee." It doesn't demand, it whispers, until you try to stop. And that's when you realize how deep it runs. The truth? Regular caffeine consumption changes your brain's chemistry. Every time you block adenosine with caffeine, your brain notices. It adapts. It starts producing more adenosine receptors to balance the interference. That means, over time, the same cup of coffee gives you less of a jolt. You need more to feel the same effect. And when you don't have it, those extra receptors flood your system with sleep signals, leading to withdrawal symptoms like fatigue, headaches, irritability, and yes, insomnia. Yes, you read that right. Caffeine withdrawal can also cause insomnia. Because your body is trying to find equilibrium after losing the chemical it's come to depend on. Some researchers describe it as internal rebound. Others call it sleep fragmentation. But to you, it just feels like betrayal. One night, coffee keeps you up. The next, not having it does the same. This is where the conversation gets uncomfortable. European sleep scientists have recently started redefining caffeine use not as a habit, but as a self-sustaining sleep disruptor. In their studies, participants who reported long-term caffeine use often showed non-restorative sleep patterns even after adjusting their intake. Their brains seemed stuck in a loop, tired during the day, artificially stimulated by caffeine, disrupted at night. Repeat. Some participants even developed a subtle but persistent state of hyperarousal condition, where the brain remains slightly alert, even during rest. It's not anxiety, not full-blown insomnia, but a kind of low-grade wakefulness that keeps true rest just out of reach. And here's where it gets stranger. In one Swedish study, researchers found that some people who regularly drank coffee after 5 p.m. reported no subjective sleep problems. They felt fine. But when their brainwaves were measured during sleep, they showed lower levels of slow-wave activity, the deepest, most restorative stage of sleep. They were sleeping, yes, but not healing, not resetting, just floating in a shallow pool of rest. The debate continues. Does caffeine simply mask tiredness, or does it hollow out the quality of sleep altogether? Some scientists argue it depends on dosage. Others say it depends on timing, but a growing number believe it's not just about how much you drink, but how long you've been drinking it. Because here's what rarely gets talked about: cumulative adaptation. Your brain doesn't just respond to caffeine day by day, it adapts week by week, month by month. And those changes more adenosine receptors, altered neurotransmitter levels, shifts in dopamine balancing can take weeks to rebalance, even after you stop. So when you say, "I only had 1 cup today," what your body hears is, "We've had caffeine every day for the last 10 years. And if you're thinking, "But I need caffeine to function," you're not wrong. That's the point. Your body has been trained to expect it. Without it, you're not functioning below average, you're functioning below your adjusted baseline, a baseline that caffeine helped create. You sit up in bed, rub your temples. The air feels a little too still. You remember the last time you skipped caffeine for more than a day. The fog, the headache behind your eyes. That feeling of your limbs moving through syrup? That wasn't just tiredness. That was chemical debt. Here's something researchers in Belgium discovered. People who gradually reduce their caffeine intake over a 2-week period report dramatic improvements in sleep quality even if they didn't realize their sleep was impaired before. They didn't just sleep more. They dreamed more. They woke up feeling rested, sometimes for the first time in years. But the process is messy. Withdrawal often includes fragmented sleep before it gets better. Your brain has to relearn what natural tired feels like. And let's not forget the social layer. Caffeine is everywhere: work, culture, relationships. Turning it down can feel isolating, even rebellious. One sleep researcher joked, "Quitting coffee is like stepping out of a group hypnosis and watching everyone else keep dancing." You chuckle quietly at the thought. It's the first time tonight you've smiled. Because deep down, you know this isn't about giving up coffee forever. It's about understanding what it does to you, your rhythm, your rest, your ability to shut off the world and fall back into yourself. You lie down again. No answers yet, just awareness. But maybe that's the first step. The room is quieter now, but your mind is not. Somewhere outside, a car rolls by, its headlights flash across your ceiling for a moment and vanish. You stare into that faint afterglow, thinking how strange it is that the world keeps moving while you're stuck in place, tangled in your sheets, craving stillness more than sleep. But if you were in southern Europe right now, say, in Italy or France, this whole scenario might look very different. Because over there, sleep doctors are fighting a growing crisis of their own: caffeine-related insomnia among young adults. The culprit? Not energy drinks or office coffee. It's espresso strong, cultural, and ritualistic, a lifestyle, not a choice. In many parts of Europe, especially in the Mediterranean, drinking espresso after dinner is a norm, sometimes even after dessert. It's social, elegant, and assumed to be harmless. And for some people, it is. But for an increasing number of patients walking into sleep clinics across Rome, Marseille, and Valencia, that tiny cup holds a hidden trap. Doctors are reporting a spike in what they're calling delayed onset insomnia. Patients fall asleep just fine. But then, Around 2 or 3 a.m., they wake up alert, restless, wide-eyed. Not anxious, just awake. As if the brain remembered something it forgot to finish. In one clinic in Florence, a sleep specialist tracked over 200 cases like this. The common thread? A single post-dinner espresso taken between 8 and 9 p.m. The patients didn't feel wired after drinking it. In fact, most felt relaxed. But the data showed that even without perceived stimulation, the caffeine was active for hours longer than expected, especially in those with slower metabolic rates. You turn over again. Somehow this feels familiar. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Caffeine's effect doesn't always match its sensation. You may not feel jittery, you may not feel anything at all, but your brain chemistry is still shifting, your hormones still adjusting. And that's the trap. In Spain, researchers recently conducted a study on sleep latency recall, how accurately people remember the time it took them to fall asleep. Turns out, people who consumed caffeine in the evening consistently underestimated how long it took to drift off. They thought they slept well. But EEG monitors told a different story: disrupted REM, delayed deep sleep, and more frequent micro-awakenings throughout the night. So the problem isn't just physiological, it's perceptual. Caffeine affects your sleep long after you stop feeling it. Now, let's talk about cultural tolerance. In places like Paris or Lisbon, coffee isn't just a drink. It's woven into conversation, family tradition, romance. Telling someone to give up their evening espresso is like telling them to skip dinner. So sleep clinics in these regions are having to get creative. Some suggest switching to mezzo cafe, half-caff versions that deliver the same taste with less impact. Others recommend herbal alternatives that mimic the bitterness of espresso without the stimulation. But the most interesting development? A small wave of sleep specialists is now promoting what they call the caffeine curfew. It's not about banning coffee altogether. It's about treating it like alcohol, something to enjoy but with a time limit. No caffeine after 2 p.m. It sounds strict, it sounds impossible, but when patients commit even reluctantly, results are startling. One clinic in Barcelona reported a 60% improvement in sleep quality after just 2 weeks of curfews. Not medications, not meditation apps, just a shift in timing. And yet, there's resistance. Because for so many, caffeine isn't just a chemical, it's a comfort, a routine, a friend that shows up every morning, every late afternoon, every sleepy meeting. Giving that up feels personal, even emotional. Here's a strange fact that might surprise you. Caffeine consumption activates the same reward pathways in the brain as social bonding. That means drinking coffee doesn't just make you feel awake, it makes you feel connected. To people, to yourself, to a version of you that's productive, present, capable. So of course it's hard to give up. It's not just about the energy, it's about identity. Still, more and more Europeans are starting to question that identity. Cafes in Amsterdam now offer sleep-friendly menus with low-caff options. In Vienna, some baristas display caffeine content like calorie counts. And in Nordic countries, herbal coffee, alternatives made from chicory, roasted barley, or lion's mane mushroom air, slowly gaining popularity among students and shift workers. Back in your bed, you think about all the cups you've had over the years. The first one in college, cradled in both hands. The one before a big job interview. The ones shared in quiet kitchens over long talks with friends. None of them felt harmful at the time. And maybe they weren't. But tonight, something's different. The connection between you and caffeine feels unbalanced. Like a friendship that's grown quietly toxic, though no one wants to admit it. And while your body may not be in Paris or Milan, it's living through the same struggle. How do you enjoy something that's quietly stealing from you? How do you step back from a habit that makes you feel like yourself until it doesn't? Outside, the sky is still black, but there's a faint silverness near the window. Morning is coming. And sleep? Still out of reach. You blink slowly. The shadows in your room haven't changed, but somehow you know time has passed. Not enough. Never enough. You haven't slept at least not deeply, but you feel different now. A little slower, a little heavier. Your thoughts come more like waves than sparks. And with that, a new fear creeps in it that you can't sleep tonight. But what happens if this keeps happening? You've heard people joke, "I'll sleep when I'm dead." But what if caffeine is quietly shortening the time between now and then? Let's talk about what happens when sleep deprivation becomes chronic, specifically when caffeine is involved. In Denmark, neurologists have been studying people who consume moderate to high doses of caffeine daily and report more than 3 nights a week of poor sleep. The results? A pattern of cognitive micro-declines, almost invisible drops in executive functioning. Nothing dramatic. You don't forget your name or where you live, but you start losing sharpness. Your memory gets hazier, your reaction time slows, you blank out mid-sentence. And here's the insidious part. Caffeine masks those symptoms. It doesn't fix them, it just hides them, like makeup over a bruise. You feel functional because the caffeine is forcing alertness. But the underlying systems, memory, emotion regulation, decision-making, they're running on fumes. Now add in sleep fragmentation, fancy term for what you're probably feeling right now. Broken, shallow, restless sleep. The kind where your body goes to bed, but your brain never gets the invitation. This kind of sleep doesn't reset your stress hormones or balance your immune system. In fact, studies in Belgium show that sleep fragmentation, when chronic, can raise cortisol levels by as much as 45%, even if your total sleep time looks normal on paper. And guess what increases sleep fragmentation? Yep, caffeine. Especially when used late in the day or in high doses, caffeine doesn't just delay sleep, it interrupts the depth of your rest. You might get 7 hours, but you're awake feeling like you got 3. Now, take that effect and stretch it out over months, even years. The science starts to look darker. In Norway, sleep researchers tracked adults over a 5-year period who reported regular caffeine intake combined with moderate sleep disruption. By year 3, their brain scans showed early signs of gray matter thinning, specifically in the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for focus, impulse control, and emotional balance. Not catastrophic, but noticeable. And when they cut caffeine for a full month, some of the loss stabilized, but some didn't. Of course, not everyone agrees on the implications. Does caffeine cause these brain changes, or just accelerate them in people already vulnerable? Some argue the damage is due to sleep loss itself, with caffeine merely playing an accessory role. Others believe caffeine's interference with neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to repair and adapt, could be the main issue. One German lab is even exploring the possibility that caffeine disrupts the glymphatic system, a newly discovered cleanup process that activates only during deep sleep. It's responsible for flushing waste proteins from the brain, including beta amyloid, which is linked to cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. If caffeine prevents the kind of sleep that enables this system to function, then the question becomes, are we trading alertness now for clarity later? You lie very still, that thought echoing through your body like a ripple in still water. You try to remember the last time you truly woke up refreshed. The last time you didn't reach for coffee before your eyelids had fully opened. The last time your energy came from inside you, not from a cup. And here's a strange observation from sleep clinics in Iceland. Patients who reduce caffeine and improve their sleep often report something else, something unexpected, a change in emotional depth. They feel more, cry more easily, laugh more fully. It's as if restoring sleep also restores their access to themselves. It makes sense. Sleep is where we sort emotions, file memories, repair damage. Without it, you start to live life through a layer of static. You don't even notice the static until it's gone. Which brings us to the scariest thought of all. What if this isn't just a phase? What if your baseline has shifted and you never noticed? You used to be sharper, funnier, more present. Then life got busier. Coffee became routine. Sleep got shorter. But you adapted. You adjusted. And now this half-awake, half-alive version of you is just normal. But it doesn't have to be. That's the quiet hope buried beneath the science. The damage may be reversible, slowly, gently, with care. In Austria, a small pilot study found that participants who stopped caffeine entirely for 30 days and followed a guided sleep restoration program saw not only improved deep sleep, but increased working memory, emotional balance, and even more vivid dreams. You let that settle for a moment. It's not about giving up coffee forever. It's about stepping back far enough to see what it's really doing. And that realization? It starts tonight. You breathe out slowly, feel the tightness in your chest ease just a little. Your body still isn't ready to sleep, but something inside you feels quieter. Maybe that's a beginning. You pull the blanket up to your chest, not because you're cold, but because the weight of it feels like something to hold on to. Familiar, solid. Everything else feels blurry right now, your thoughts, your focus, even time itself. And in the fog of wakefulness, you wonder, would decaf have made a difference? It's a question that seems simple on the surface. And yet, in labs across Europe, researchers are still arguing over the answer. Is decaf truly safe for sleep? Let's start with the numbers. A standard cup of decaf coffee still contains anywhere from 2 to 15 milligrams of caffeine. Not much, compared to the 95 milligrams in a regular cup. But here's where things get interesting. In a recent study from Finland, participants who were caffeine sensitive reported difficulty falling asleep even after drinking decaf, especially in the evening. Their cortisol levels spiked slightly. Their heart rate variability dropped. Some researchers think this is due to trace caffeine lingering just long enough to interfere with the body's nightly shutdown sequence. Others suggest something even stranger. The psychological effect of believing you've had caffeine may be enough to trigger a low-grade arousal response. Your brain associates the taste, smell, and ritual with stimulation, and it responds 7 when the chemistry doesn't fully back it up. But there's more to decaf than just caffeine. Depending on how it's processed, Swiss water method, carbon dioxide extraction, or chemical solvents, decaf coffee may retain compounds that subtly affect neurotransmitter activity. Some studies point to methylxanthines, a group of naturally occurring stimulants that can still be present in decaf and may influence alertness. And while these levels are typically low, the impact isn't uniform. People with slower caffeine metabolism, gut imbalances, or heightened stress sensitivity may still feel a noticeable effect, especially when consumed after 3 or 4 p.m. You think back, was that last cup really decaf? Was it even labeled? Sometimes at cafes, the pot sits next to the regular one. Maybe they got switched. Or maybe you didn't ask. That uncertainty alone can be enough to keep your mind spinning. In Germany, some neurologists have even coined a term for this phenomenon: phantom stimulation. It's not a placebo. It's a real physiological response to environmental cues like Pavlov's dog, but caffeinated. One patient described it like this: even if I drink herbal tea out of my coffee mug, I feel more alert. It's like my body remembers what the cup usually means. So what's the solution? Some experts recommend completely decoupling the sleep window from anything coffee Lucchino mugs, no rituals, no roasted aromas, at least until your body resets its associations. Others go further, advocating for a switch to non-coffee sleep, drinks chamomile, lemon balm, or even warm oat milk, which contains small amounts of melatonin and tryptophan. Meanwhile, a Danish study recently found that some people actually sleep better when they replace decaf with nothing at all. Not because the decaf was harmful, but because the act of drinking late at night kept their body in a state of subtle readiness. A kind of pre-sleep activation, like your nervous system was still waiting for the next task. You can't help but smile at how absurdly delicate the human body is sometimes. A smell, a sip, a memory, all enough to change your heartbeat, to keep your brain from letting go. Still, it's not all bad news. Researchers in France are exploring adaptogenic alternative sherbs and roots like ashwagandha, tulsi, or reishi that provide a sense of calm without the stimulant buzz. Early studies show that certain blends may even improve sleep onset and enhance REM without triggering alertness beforehand. One small clinical trial in Lyon gave participants a warm drink made with reishi mushroom and oat milk 1 hour before bed. The result? Not just faster sleep, but longer dream cycles and fewer midnight awakenings. The participants didn't feel drugged. They felt quiet. Maybe that's the word you're looking for tonight. Not tired, not sedated, just quiet. Because decaf or not, you're realizing something more profound. Your body doesn't just respond to chemicals, it responds to context. What time you drink, where you sit, how fast you move. All of it matters. All of it shapes the terrain of sleep. And maybe that's where the power lies. Not in what you remove, but in how you rearrange your rituals. You reach for your water bottle. It's lukewarm now, doesn't matter. You sip slowly, imagining it washing away what remains of caffeine, of expectation, of pressure. You don't know if tonight will end in sleep, but for the first time, you don't feel like you're fighting your body. You feel like you're listening to it. And that might be the beginning of something softer. There's a hush now. Not silence, your fan still hums. A floorboard creaks in the hallway. The fridge ticks once in the distance, but a hush. Like something inside you has finally stopped pacing. You don't feel asleep, but you feel close, like your body is on the edge of surrender. And in that stillness, a memory surfaces of a dream you used to have often. A forest, quiet, full of mist. You never walked in it. You just stood there, watching the fog move like breath. Peaceful, safe. You haven't had that dream in a while, have you? You see, caffeine doesn't just affect when you sleep or how deeply. It can also change how and if you dream. REM sleep, short for rapid eye movement, is where dreaming lives. It's when your brain organizes memories, processes emotion, and runs the strange theater of your subconscious. And here's the twist. Caffeine doesn't erase REM, but it does make it more fragile. In multiple studies across European sleep labs, especially in Norway and Switzerland, scientists have observed that people who consume caffeine within 6 hours of bedtime often experience reduced REM density. That means fewer dreams, shorter dream episodes, and more frequent wake-ups in the middle of the night. You might not notice right away, but over time, the absence of dreams takes its toll. People report feeling emotionally flat, like their reactions are blunted, their moods dulled, their creativity muted. One researcher put it this way: dreaming is how the brain exfoliates. If you never dream, it starts to feel like your emotional skin thickens. And here's the eerie part. Some people go years without realizing they've stopped dreaming until they cut caffeine, and suddenly, there they are again, the forests, the oceans, the strange architecture of the mind returning in full color. This is where things get tricky, because the relationship between caffeine and REM isn't purely chemical, it's also chronobiological. That is, it has to do with timing. Your body has specific windows when it expects REM, usually in the later part of your sleep cycle, closer to dawn. But if caffeine delays your sleep by even an hour or two, those REM-rich windows shrink. You don't miss sleep entirely, you just miss the most meaningful parts. And this has long-term effects. In Germany, researchers tracked individuals with chronic caffeine use and REM suppression. After 6 months, those participants showed higher levels of emotional reactivity and lower tolerance for stress. The theory? Without regular REM, the brain loses some of its capacity to regulate strong emotions. You feel things harder, react faster, break down easier. Which brings us to a question scientists are still debating. Is REM suppression a form of emotional starvation? And if so, is caffeine one of the quietest culprits? You turn onto your back again. That dream, the one with the forested, was always so vivid. You wonder if it meant something, or if it was just your brain doing what it's built to do when allowed the time and space. There's another layer. Here's something most sleep studies don't talk about: the spiritual weight of dreaming. In some cultures, dreams are seen as guidance, as a place where the subconscious communes with something deeper, and in those places, caffeine isn't treated like a harmless stimulant. It's treated with caution, as something that can close doors inside the psyche. In ancient Greek medicine, for example, sleep and dreams were sacred, ruled by Hypnos and Morpheus. Anything that interfered with the purity of that space was considered spiritually dangerous. Modern science might not go that far, but even researchers now admit the absence of dreaming correlates with reduced emotional insight, slower trauma recovery, and even impaired learning. Which means that caffeine, when misused, doesn't just keep you awake, it may quietly block your ability to process your own life. Now, let's be fair. Not everyone loses REM to caffeine. Genetics matter, timing matters, dose matters. But if you're lying awake tonight wondering why you feel emotionally distant, disconnected, or creatively stuck, maybe the answer isn't in your brain, maybe it's in your bloodstream. Some researchers in the Netherlands have begun experimenting with REM recovery protocols for caffeine-sensitive individuals. It's not a supplement, it's not a therapy. It's just rest. 2 weeks of no caffeine, no screens after sunset, and scheduled wind-down routines. The result? Vivid dreams, deeper sleep, emotional clarity. The participants didn't just sleep better. They started remembering who they were before they were tired all the time. And that's the secret no one tells you. We think of sleep as absence, as blankness. But it's not. Sleep is where your mind writes poetry. Sleep is where your body keeps its promises. Sleep is where you return to yourself. And caffeine, when misaligned, steals that gently. You breathe in, hold, let it go. Not asleep yet, but your mind feels quieter now. Like the dream knows the way back. It's just waiting for you to follow. You lie there, eyes half closed, not sure if you've been drifting or just imagining that you are. The room feels softer now, the air cooler against your skin. You haven't changed position in a while, which means something has changed inside, perhaps. You're not asleep, but for the first time tonight, you're not fighting it either. And maybe that's the beginning of sleep. There's something tender about this moment. Fragile, like you've wandered your way to the edge of a forest after a long walk in the dark. The leaves part gently, the wind hushes, and you feel something inside you say, stay. Because now, it's time to find your way back. Back to rhythm, back to rest, back to your body. You've spent most of your life trying to stay awake. Be sharp, be fast, be productive. But no one ever taught you the art of slowing down, of unwinding, of giving your nervous system permission to let go. And that's where we arrive tonight, the repair. Not through medication, not through willpower, but through natural recalibration. Let's talk about how you begin. Across Europe, particularly in Scandinavia sleep, researchers have turned their attention to natural interventions. Gentle, consistent habits that retrain the body to recognize rest as a daily necessity, not a luxury. They don't promise miracles, but they do promise balance, which is what caffeine has quietly unraveled over time. One of the most effective? Light control. As it turns out, your body clock responds far more to light exposure than you might think. In one Norwegian study, participants who limited blue light after sunset and stepped into natural morning light within 30 minutes of waking reset their melatonin rhythm in under 2 weeks 7 without changing their caffeine intake. Another gentle nudge? Sound. Low frequency, non-verbal audio like the sound of wind, ocean waves, or a fan has been shown to coax the brain into slower wave patterns. Sleep clinics in Switzerland now pair soft, ambient tones with breath-guided exercises, helping patients recondition their bodies to settle at the same time each night. Then there's temperature. A drop in core body temperature triggers sleep onset, and that drop can be encouraged naturally with a lukewarm shower before bed, or by cooling the bedroom by just 2 degrees. Sleep therapists in Vienna now recommend what they call the feather cave method, layering light bedding and opening a window, even in winter, to stimulate the body's built-in sleep cascade. And finally, what you eat. We talk so much about what not to consume: no caffeine, no sugar, no alcohol, but few talk about what to add back in. Foods rich in magnesium, tryptophan, and natural melatonin like oats, almonds, tart cherries, and bananaskin support your body's sleep signals in quiet, nourishing ways. In Iceland, sleep programs for teens now include evening smoothies made with banana, flaxseed, and a pinch of cinnamon. Nothing exotic, just supportive. You begin to see the pattern. Sleep isn't a battle. It's a return, a ritual. And rituals require gentleness, repetition, a sense of safety. That's where caffeine becomes a question. Not, should I quit? But, am I ready to let something else lead? Not forever, maybe just for now. To let your body remember what it was built to do. To feel tired naturally. To trust that tiredness. To follow it down into rest without resistance. You shift onto your side, slowly. A pillow tucked under your cheek. Your breath softens. You feel the tiniest yawn trying to rise. And somewhere in the quiet of your room, you realize sleep isn't something you chase. It's something you welcome. You're still here, still breathing quietly in the dim light, and that is more than enough. Tonight hasn't been perfect, but something has shifted. The battle is over. You're no longer running from your body, you're listening to it, cradling it, letting it unwind. The path back to sleep isn't paved in magic fixes, it's slow, uneven, beautifully human. And it begins with noticing. Noticing the patterns, the signals, the quiet ways your body whispers what it needs. Sometimes that means letting go of a habit like caffeine because it's bad, but because it no longer fits the rhythm you're trying to return to. You're not broken. You're adapting. And every night you choose gentleness over stimulation, you lay another stone on the path back home. So when morning comes and it will remember this, you don't have to do everything. Just one thing. One small act of care. One shift in timing. One more evening without the coffee. Let the nights grow quieter. Let your dreams return. Let your body lead. And when the next wave of sleeplessness comes, and it will, you'll meet it differently, with patience, with understanding, with the knowledge that rest isn't gone, just waiting. So now, don't chase sleep. Let it come. Like mist through the trees. Like wind through the leaves. Like a soft hand across your back, guiding you inward, gently. Back to yourself.